Okay, hello everyone. Well, our session. So if you can see the video, then that will be great. And then we'll be very soon sharing the slides. And then if you have any problems, either hearing or seeing the video, you can just let me know by raising your hands. If you have other questions, you can also say it from the chat zone because I've already enabled all your audios and videos so that you can just either let me know immediately or write it down. For this session, just 1 second, I'm trying to come back to the area again. Okay, so as you all know that we have quite a lot of the dramatic changes this year to the way that we deliver the module, to the way that we'll have the exam. It's 50% good news and 50% bad news. The good news is you have an open book one. That means that you can have a look at all our lecture notes when you are answering the questions. So if you think your memory is not very good, then you'll probably benefit from the open book exam. The 50% bad news is that we'll probably have a slightly different type of the exam questions that you will have to. That's why that we have the purpose of this revision together, that you will have to know how to deal with it, because it will be slightly more difficult for you to have the perfect answer. I'm sure that you can cope roughly, but if you want to have the 100% satisfactory answer, then you need to do more analysis and put in more effort into it. So that's the purpose for today. We will try to be as comprehensive as we can. We try to include both the content of the exam and also the format of the exam, and then in answering the questions, so that if you are having any of the problems, just let me know either here or afterwards on QM Plus, so that we can cope with it together. So we'll look at the content first, and then another very important thing is how we try to do the very quick, so-called look at the examples of the exam question for this year, because I'm not sure if you have already asked about, the lecturers for other modules. They all have the same problem, so that everybody would expect you to to answer the questions within 2 hours, but you'll probably have to take a little bit more than 2 hours to sort out the difference between the lecture and then our exam question. Okay, so first of all, I have to do a disclaimer. The exercises that we'll use for this revision session are not actually exactly the same as what you will see in the exam. So don't assume that all the questions need to be written down. So it's just the opportunity for you to think about how I can cope with it, the approach, the methods, and instead of just the content of the exercise. And the second very important thing is that you need to revise all the areas. That's because all our exams, as we have already mentioned in the teaching week 4, we said that the reason why we have all these different kind of the exams and the assessment are to serve the purpose of learning outcome. So it's beneficial for you, and then so that is actually one part of improving your overall skill sets. So try to revise as much as you can and generally make all the knowledge, all the skills a part of yourself, because that's actually the ultimate purpose for us to have any kind of the exams. And then the third very important thing I have to remind everybody before we move on to look at the topics is that the case studies, do you remember that for each teaching week, we always have the case studies. It might be, you see, the similar case study. You might be able to use some of the case studies in the exam, but I would like you to focus more on the conclusions instead of the story themselves. Of course, you can use the stories as examples to illustrate a particular aspect of the question, exam question. That's great, but the most important thing that you have to remember is that what you actually learned from the whole, it's called the case study. Okay, topics covered. This is actually something different from the previous years. In the previous years, that we always say, because we only have 4 different, you see, the 4 big exam questions, so that some of the topics won't be covered, some of the topics will be covered. But this year, because it's an open book one, so I would like you to revise everything. But of course, you can also think in advance what kind of the topics are more important than the other topics. But this year is not that kind of the, you see, the desperate for you. Why? Because first, you will have sufficient time. You actually have 48 hours instead of just 2 hours to sort out where you can actually find the knowledge area. And the second very important thing is that you can actually copy the relevant theory or the concept from the lecture notes. So that's a good thing. So it's not actually as urgent as a closed book exam would require. So that I would just suggest, in order for you to have, you see, the better performance, if it's me, I would just revise everything, and at the same time try to decide which areas are more important. But again, when you see the exam question, you will still have the time to process all the information which is already, you see, in your mind, and then try to find out which part you should use instead of the others. But this was said that it's actually good this year, so that you can have a better, we call it the active learning instead of passive learning, because our purpose is not for you to memorize everything. Our purpose is for you to be able to sort the what our purpose is, sort out the methodology, the thinking process. Any questions? If you have questions, you can raise up your hand, or you can just activate your mic, because everybody can actually talk. So I want it to be as interactive as we can. So if you can just join in, it's fine. Yes, we'll do that. We will have some of the samples later on, so don't worry. And then the next thing, let me try to find the slides. The next thing that said that before we actually move on, we will have some practice questions. But before we move on to the practice questions, I would like to say, do you know that we have some past papers on QM+? You can refer to the contents, but the format will be changed. The format this year will still have those the 4 big questions, but when you see, you will find that each of the 4 questions are they're quite large. that means that each question will carry 25 marks. So question 1, so on and so on and so on and so on. We'll have the examples later on. And then that's one question. And then you will be given an answer sheet, a separate piece of paper. And then you can either write it by hand, or you can just type in, because I'll say that for us, it's actually the same. It doesn't matter. Eventually, you will have to convert it to PDF and then submit it. So try to remember this year, everything will be essay questions because it's open-ended. I can't ask you, like in the previous exam papers, you can say, I can ask you, can you give me the definition of 3PL, 4PL? This year, this won't be good enough. Why? Because I need to demonstrate more than just the concept. So it's extremely important for you to think about it. And then remember, it's not necessarily, the exam question is not necessarily something very straightforward. For example, the typical question that you think I'll probably ask, what's, you see, this COVID-19 pandemic will bring about to the, you see, to the supply chain of a particular company. So this is actually said that you need to do very quick processing, or you will try to think, can I actually prepare it in advance? So they'll say that different people will give me very different answers, as long as it's actually something we can relate to in this module, then it's actually a good answer, but we'll talk about this later on. And then again, there's another very important thing I would like to mention here. There will be no calculations, no complicated calculations or multiple choice questions. Why? Because we don't want it to be very so-called easy or too complicated. Because in our mind, it's more important to have to have the right methods, right analytical skills than, let's say, the calculation skills. So calculation is not our purpose. Another very important thing is that the exam paper is designed to be able to get it finished within 2 hours. So don't write too long. We'll mention about that. In your answer sheet, it's not that we don't give you a word limit that you can write as long as you can. So like 20 pages long, that's absolutely not necessary. Why? Because it's still the exam. So still treat it as exam. And also, don't wait until the very last hour or very last 2 hours to submit. Why? Because it's eventually an exam. So try to make sure you have sufficient gap between your submission, and then the deadline, so that you need to make sure that, let's say, roughly you can finish. If you are thinking, oh, I'm writing too long, too much for this particular question, it's not quite balanced, then you probably did, you see, unnecessarily long. Try to get it shorter. And then if you think that, okay, why do I finish the whole thing just within 1 hour? Then it's probably because you didn't put in enough content. So try to write more. So that's how we are trying to say we were given 48 hours simply because we want you to think a little bit more. But you don't have to use all 48 hours to answer the question, because the exam is not eventually it's not the coursework. And then try not to collaborate with anyone. I know it's open book that you can discuss, but eventually we will have a software on my end called Turnitin. I'm not sure if other people actually mentioned it. If it's more than 20% of similarity, it will give you the highlighted version. So whatever you submitted, when it comes to me, it's already been sorted already by this Turnitin software. So that if you are having called too much similarity, and then I obviously have to look it through to see if it's actually called everybody get the correct answer, or it's actually said that you actually just copied other people's answer. So try to be responsible to yourself, and then try to try to do it independently. Can't actually have the same sentence, exactly the same sentence for too many sentences. And then if you try to cite something that actually either the quotation or diagram or something, try to cite the source. Why? Because this is also the open book exam. That's actually different because it's an essay type questions. Don't have to cite everything, but if it's necessary, typical name for statistics, if you want to use a figure to illustrate a particular aspect, then you better cite the source. And then before you start answering, how you were trying to say, I need to get everything done as quickly as I can. No, before you do everything, try to make sure that you can understand what you are asked to answer beforehand. Why? Because every year there will be some of the students who give me entirely irrelevant answers. So if you are asked about cost management, don't give a lot of the discussion about inventory management or the other way around. Try to make sure that you are actually giving me the correct answer. And this time is actually easier. Why? Because you're not so panicky, and then you have the comfort of your own little area, and then so that you don't have to get to the exam room very early in the morning, so you don't actually have that kind of the mental status. So try to be careful and cautious. And then again, before you actually answer the question, if you spot anything in terms of the general questions in terms of the format, in terms of the distortion, sometimes the font is corrupted, anything to do with the exam paper, anything to do with the answer book, try to raise the issue via the messaging section. I'm not sure if you have used that before. There's a little bubble, and then you can ask the question there. Let us know immediately. Why? Because we have 7 hours time difference, and then so that I will try to get back to you as quickly as I can, but those that it's your responsibility to let us know that something's not actually quite right. So try to make sure that it's actually there, instead of just start to answer the questions. But of course, you can't discuss content of the exam question. But if it's something wrong, typical thing, with the answer sheet, do you know that you have to answer, the exam paper is one, but you have to give all the answers in the answer sheet. Try to make sure that you let us know. And then when you have the answer sheet in front of you, try to start a new page for each question. That means that, do you remember we said we have 4 questions only? And then each question, the big question only have, the big question. However, when you answer it, because it's 25 marks, so you probably have to the code automatically processing it into several different parts to answer. But it's your responsibility, to start a new page. We're trying to say is question 1. And then if you can't actually finish question 1 on 1 page, but I would say that you don't have to write that long, seriously. But you need several pages, so you need to mark it very carefully. You were trying to say this is question 1A, page A, and then question 1, and then page B, and then so that you can sort it very clearly and upload it in your PDF very clearly. and then hand in very clearly. So it's your responsibility. If the examiner got lost, then it's actually your loss. So try to mark it very clearly, and then try to make sure you save your file. Or you can't just say, oh no, I can't hand in. Why? Because I lost the file. I actually yes, and I've been typing for the last 2 hours. Just 1 second. Is message section equal? Just 1 second. I need to look at the question. Is the message section equal to the message? No, it's not. It's separate. You know, I'll show you. On the very top of the whole thing. Let me show you if I can. Just 1 second. I will share the. Just 1 second. Share application, Chrome. Okay, share. Here, can you see there's a 15 here, and then you can see a lot of you also a lot of private messages, and then so this is a place where I can see all the private messages. Why do you have to use this bit? That's because I don't want other people to see the question that you are asking. So try to use that bit of the question area. Okay, on the purple bar. So for me, it's recent modules. I'm sure that you have quite similar design. And then search. Beside the search, there's a bubble, dialog bubble there. Okay, so yeah, this bit, can you see? So that's actually the area that you have to find. And then you click here, and then you can talk to me. But obviously, I probably won't be able to answer your question until until later. So you have to wait until I'm online. Okay. Yeah. What's the question? Okay. Great.
Can I use Chinese?
No, I'm sorry, I can't because I'm recording this session. Everything will have to be, you see, like monitored by third party. So everything will have to be explained like this. So if you can also ask me like that. Any other questions? Can you? Yeah.
So you mean we only 2 hours to complete the exam if we get access to the.
Yes, in theory. In theory, you have 2 hours, but obviously you are in your own home, so nobody can actually see whether or not you spend 2 hours or 4 hours or 8 hours or 48 hours. So it's entirely your thing. That's what they said. It's an open book. And obviously, you will have other exams to deal with at the same time. So you have 48 hours see between the time that you can see the exam question and the time you have to submit it. So it's a window opportunity 48 hours. But when you see the exam paper, it's designed to be finished within 2 hours. So if you are writing, you see, very diligently for 8 hours non-stop, then you obviously put on too much, you see, information onto the exam paper. That's actually what we are trying to say. It's designed to be 2 hours, but you can use more than 2 hours.
So you mean you will give us a set of exam questions and an answer format, and we should type our answer in this format and convert it to PDF, then submit it within any time within the 48 hours.
Yes. However, questions, I will only give you 4 questions. Like every question is compulsory. You must answer every single one of them. And then all the questions are the essay type questions. It's not that I said that if you look at the past paper, you can see quite a lot of the very straightforward. What do you mean by supply chain management? You won't be able to see this kind this year, but you will be able to see questions like manager so and so is actually having a problem with typical say with their supply, and then if you are the manager, what would you do? This kind of the questions. So 4 big questions on in a one file, and then you also download another file called answer sheets. You should put all your answers on the answer sheet instead of the exam paper. And then after you see that after you answered all the questions, all 4 questions, upload the PDF called answer sheet. But also that you have to, and so that I can see this is actually you said that everybody will use their student ID, student number, and then so that I can actually see actually your you see the answer sheet instead of other people's answer sheet. Okay, we'll come back to this later on, but I think it's much easier if you could just ask me using audio. After you ask the question, you can still mute yourself, and then so that other people can hear me clearly. But I think it's much easier. Great. So I said that you can use the lecture notes, you can use the textbook, but the idea is that we have to make sure our answers are very unique, so that you can't actually discuss with another classmate online and then say, okay, let's answer the question in this way. And then eventually turn up that you are actually having 100% similarity. That's really disastrous to both of you. So don't try to do it at all. So try to answer everything individually, because it's eventually the exam. And also remember, you will have to convert it. I'm not sure if you have the software to convert it, but if you only have Word, do you know how to save it as PDF? Everybody will have to know. If you don't know, ask on QM Plus so that we can show you. So try to make sure it's the PDF format. If it's the other format, they'll say that you're actually asking trouble for yourself. So don't do that. And also from now on, until we still haven't got the exact date of the exam, but you should be able to have sufficient time. Okay. The next one, very important. We have 48 hours. It sounds extremely long, but don't wait until the very last minute. Why? Because that everything can happen. This is the Murphy's Law. So try not to be late. And also remember that you can actually use a newer version to replace the old version. So try to make sure that you are actually having the right thing. Pay attention to the code we have turned it in, because it's automatically processed on QM Plus, so that when I see your version, it's already highlighted in different colors. Okay. And then the next very important thing for this module, before this, all the other arrangements are actually applicable to every module. When you are thinking about it, do you use your language to answer the question, or do you just copy and paste from the lecture notes? Which way is better? I would say neither. First, don't use your colloquial language. Try to use the business terms, as we always say. Why? So that you can get to the mark. Why? Because this is to show whether or not you have the mindset, the thinking framework. That's required for this module. And the second, you will say, okay, I can actually use all the words that you use in your lectures. Okay. That's not good, quite good either. Ideally, you should use all our core text. I'm not sure if you still have the book with you, but I said that the books are actually very useful. That's actually the language why. First, bullet points are okay in terms of how you sort out your paragraphs, but don't use bullet points only. You need to phrase them into complete sentences so that it's actually very convincing, but in full sentences. So it's extremely important for you to understand it's actually about complete sentences. And then with the beginning, and then your argument, and then eventually the conclusion, or the summary about a particular issue, and then so that it's an essay instead of just a point slides. I don't like to see point slides on the exam paper, even if those are that I'm sure that you are actually quite good at doing the bullet points. So don't do bullet points, and also show your analytical skills. It's not true that you can just compile all the facts together, piled everything together. I know it's open book, so I would expect you having no problem at all in finding, the area where you can actually answer, you can use, but they are the raw data. I don't like to see raw data. I want it to be put into different boxes, and so that you need to process it. I need to have in-depth analysis. So you can choose either to give me the conclusion first and then to explain why you have such a conclusion, or do the other way around. It's up to you. So it's actually the structure you need to choose. But I need to see you actually use the method instead of the compiled all the facts onto the paper. Then we can have some very quick exercise. In the slides that you saw on QM Plus, you probably don't have the answer, but here in our tutorial, you have the answer. You have the reference answer that you can use. So very quickly, if you see such a question on the exam paper, I can assure you it will happen. How can you answer such a question? 25 marks. Yeah, very quickly. I'll see what other questions we have here. So that if we have more specific, I said it's not necessary. Why? Because it's an open book. But it's still timely. I said if it's me, if I was given 48 hours, it's still timely enough. Even if I said that I just have to do a very quick, comprehensive revision of everything. Because I've already done the week by week study, so I should have the very quick, very rough impression about the content of the module, and then within 48 hours, using all 4 questions as a clue, you should be able to have the analytical skills, the ability to find the correct answer in only 16 topics. So I'm sure you can. So that's why it's not necessary. In previous years, I was trying to say, oh, you don't have to revise some of the topics because we don't have enough time to revise. But this year, you definitely have enough time to revise, and also your exam time is actually long enough. Okay, so anybody want to say anything about your thoughts? Yeah, anything? What are you thinking? Yes, of course we have. It's in topic 4 in teaching week 1. Run a module about RFID. See, this is actually what it's very interesting. So if you think, oh, we haven't even learned this, that's because you haven't even learned this. I actually taught this. So I know exactly what's going on, but it's because of it. And we even have a video about the RFID. Okay, anybody want to say anything? If you actually not about aware about where you can actually find the material, then that's it. I can help you. But if you know where you have, but you still probably won't be able to know what's actually behind, you see, they'll call the examiners thinking. So it's normally, do you think you should mention the definition of RFID? Do you think you need to mention what we mean by barcode? And then when you are thinking about why RFID is better than barcode, do you think you should also mention why, even if RFID is better than barcode in supply chain management, but barcodes are still being used in a lot of circumstances? Not really at all. 4 weeks will be covered. Yeah, the question asked, do we have one question per week, per teaching week? It's actually not strictly so because I've already had the questions, like the exam papers done, so I can assure you some of the questions will require you to use the knowledge from 2 teaching weeks instead of 1 teaching week, so that you can't actually see separately. Okay, question 1 corresponds to teaching week 1. Question 2 corresponds to teaching week 2. Course 3, that kind of the thing. Maybe question 1, because it's a big one, will correspond to 2 teaching weeks. So that's how, yeah, those are the, and also if a particular teaching week is very important, you can actually see 2 questions, yeah, from the whole thing. Okay, so that's how we said that it's very, it's very important for you to understand. Another question, yeah, because we need to move on very quickly, so you can have time for you to ask questions. When you consider a manufacturer of wooden toys, any kind of wooden toys, discuss how it could gain from inventory management so that to enhance efficiency. Okay, who would like to answer this question? Anybody want to answer the question? Anybody want to answer the question? Have you thought about why do we ask the wooden toys? Have you thought about why would want to answer something to do with efficiency? Anybody want to answer this question? Why do we want to say wooden toys? Anybody? Anybody answer? What's the difference between wooden toy and the electronic ones? If you have robots, yeah, and then do you think it will be different in terms of inventory management? See, this is how we are trying to say, I want you to understand. You need a lot of processing, but I'm sure that you can. This actually was based on a case study in the previous years. It's actually the case study that we used in teaching week 3 about the inventory management. How can you answer such a question? You were trying to say, I need to think about the why it's actually wooden toy. If it's a toy, what's the typical thing about toy industry? It's a seasonal product. Have you thought about this? And then if it's wooden, and then it's probably what call the classical design. Why? If you think about all the wooden toys because it's been in the market for a long time, even if it's a new one. But their issue of obsolescence is actually not so called as urgent as electronic ones. See, this is how we are trying to say. And also, if it's a toy, then it's probably called price sensitive instead of called quality sensitive. So a lot of competition. And then we have the trade-off. When you want to enhance efficiency, then you probably want to, call the trade-off between responsiveness and efficiency. Okay. Do you think it's difficult to cover all these areas? Probably. So that's how we are trying to say it's not enough to just to know, you see, that it's teaching week 3, because teaching week 3 is only the beginning. And then it's not enough to think about, you see, how you can actually enhance efficiency. How can you enhance efficiency? So you need to get it very closely, as close as you can, to process that's one layer, that's called the toy. And then immediately from toy, what you can think of, and then from what you can think of, how you can actually relate to what we learned in teaching week 3. Do you think do that? Exactly. How can you know it's price sensitive? Yeah. What do you think? How can you know it's price sensitive? Have you seen very expensive wooden toys that's as expensive as a Louis Vuitton bag? Thousands of pounds? No. Why? Yeah, so this is also another why. What do you think? That's probably because first, it's not actually even if you want to use it as a present, as a gift to a child, but they have a limit to the price. And then, as I said, that all the toys, if it's the very fashionable ones, Lego, can be very expensive. But if it's wooden, can you think of very expensive wooden toys? Now, why the price is not expensive? That's because if you set the price too high, people will not buy it. They will have a lot of the substitute. No. Do you think? Do you think it's actually because of the? It's the quality. And then even if it's the quality one, that we need to come back here. They said a manufacturer of wooden toys. How can you enhance, you said, the efficiency by using event management? Why don't we want to deal with quality too much? Yeah, I know this is actually it's very good thinking. It's great to think about, the quality. But this question is not about the quality. Do you know why it's not about quality? This question is not about quality. Or because it's inventory. This should be all the preconditions. All the quality issues should be about how you can, if it's a product development module, it's probably about quality. But this is actually about inventory management. We automatically assume the quality is actually taken for granted, especially when you're thinking about efficiency. Or you can say, I want to emphasize about how I can deal with the efficiency by using high quality products. But do you remember we said quality is actually the trade-off factor to to cost and then to efficiency. These two are the one side, and then quality is on the other side. And this is what called wooden toy. This is called the nature of the buy. So if this question is asking you about efficiency, then I'm probably trying to okay. I know you probably have to. It's hard, but you can do it. This is the purpose for us to have this kind of open question. First, think about the nature of the product. Think about the industry. And then second, try to say if it's quality sensitive or price sensitive. And for this, we can ask you about efficiency. I know some of the products are actually both. For example, those are that for some of the other products, it's probably both. But for this one, I'm actually, and also they are not actually talking about whether or not you can sell it. Remember? Do you remember we said this is a very end customer. I know why you have the customer. Because you are always, you are thinking from the point of view of the end customer. Please now think you are the manufacturer. Okay? Try to forget that you are the user. No, for this module, don't think you are the user. Try to think you are the manufacturer. Okay, can you do that? So this is how we are trying to say it's very important for you to change the reason why you have all these kind of things, because for the end user, you are the end user. So you will think, oh, it's hugely important to have the right paint and a good quality. That's because you are the end user. You are not the end user anymore. For this module, remember, always think from the point of view of the manufacturer. For the manufacturer, the quality already sorted. Tick. If it passed the ISO 9000, quality is not the problem. It's a problem solved. So I don't think about the problem, the quality as anything to do with it. It's the inventory that I have to think. Okay. Okay. Folks can also learn and learn better. Yeah. Do you remember Steve Jobs said, "Stay hungry, stay full." So the stay hungry. That's what you need to stay full. That's actually so that you can learn. Okay, good. We need to move on, because those our purpose is trying to sort out all the things. So basically, think about everything. Remember, revise. How can you revise? It's not true that you need to memorize everything, especially this year. You don't have to memorize everything, but you need to know immediately how to find them. Okay, this is the fantastic beasts. Find them. So try to do it systematically. That's in a mind map. Have you done it? If you haven't, is your problem. I've already said that. So all the lecture notes, and then try to sort them out in your system. So building the house with everything in. So try to put everything into your house. Okay. And then try to think about your expression. If you don't have the ebook, try to find the ebook and then read it to try to sort it out in a way. So you said that you can actually get better. And then the layout is very simple. Question 1, question 2, question 3, question 4. But try to get everything done. So that on your answer sheet instead of on the exam paper. But obviously we didn't have any space for you on the exam paper, so you don't need to get confused. And also trying to make sure your internet actually working, so they can actually upload it. Remember, read carefully. Try to think about your perspective. Okay, your perspective said that don't think as if you are the user, think you are the supply chain manager or the role that we actually allocate to you. And then if you don't know the answer, don't have to write anything other than the topic. Why? Because we don't want to have anything that's actually wasting your energy. Okay, so try to focus on see the right answer, and then try to read carefully. Try to analyze it first before you start writing it, and then try to write as much as you can. And then when you are asked about the examples, then you need to provide the examples. And then sometimes you use one example or several examples. Try to be very careful about your wording. Okay, and then I said that if you don't give the examples, you will not be able to get the mark. But sometimes if you are not asked to give the you see the examples, you can still use examples. No, obviously no. Those are some people. If you Hua asked, if you write a lot of things, including correct answer, a lot of irrelevant things, can we still get good marks? I'm sorry, you can't. Why? Because I don't think you have the good, clear, and concise thinking. So if I have two, you see the piece of paper in front of me, one with very concise, the correct answer only. The other one, a lot of rambling, a lot of rambling, extremely long. Obviously, I will have to give the absolutely the correct answer. The clear and concise one is a higher mark. Why? Because I know now it's not a problem. Everybody can type, everybody can copy and paste. So it's not about how long you can write. It's about how clearly you can write. So that is it. Don't have to jam all the things together. It's not relevant. Take it out. Why? Because it's not necessary. Another extreme, how many? That's a very good question. Listen, how many words should we write in one question? It's an extremely good question. Why? Because in the UK, we have another module. I'm actually doing another module called product development here in the UK. We do have a word limit allocated to each question. Because in the UK we still have one question is split into, and then so we said 100 words for the smaller ones, roughly 10 marks, and then 250 for the longer ones. But for the JP, because we have so many modules, so for our module we don't have word limit. It's at your discretion. Why? Because we don't want to restrict those students who actually elaborate in a detailed but still very clear, structured way. So we don't want to have any word limit. However, for today, I would have to say, altogether, I think 300 to 350 per question is roughly enough. You can be a little bit more, you can be a little bit less. It's entirely for your reference on. It's not, you see, strict, you see, it's not strict requirements. In the UK, we have the requirements because a lot of the students have the habit of writing extremely long, so we have to limit them. But for the JP, your problem is that you probably write too little, so we need to make sure that you write enough. So 300 to 350. Okay, so I think that's everything. And also remember, very important thing, very last thing, but very important, name your answer sheet. You're using a new name. Why? Because this is actually to make sure it's actually to be safe. Yeah, when we have hundreds and hundreds of the exam papers on QM Plus, so it's easier, yeah, to sort them out according to a, yeah, to call the naming, yeah, system. Okay, so if you still have more questions, welcome to go to the office hour. About 1 hour and a half later. And then if you don't have other questions now, but you have the new questions afterwards, you can still use the class. Okay. And then ask me. Okay, that's fine. I will still have another tutorial later on. So we will have to, yeah, should we have, no, no, not necessary to cite lecture notes. Only the books, yeah, books that you thought that I probably didn't know. Yeah, if it's something that we are doing it all the time, I don't have to cite it. Only the statistics absolutely need to be cited. And then somebody's theory that we didn't cover in the topics, or a very interesting fact that you actually think needs to be supported by the evidence. So because it's still the exam, it's not actually the coursework report, so not necessary. Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. I'll have to stop here. And then if you have questions, come to our office hour, we can continue. Okay, bye. I'll just have to, yeah, do this very quickly.